Recording in progress. 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 Recording in progress.
Good day, everyone. My name is Dr. Gbenu Shola Akinwale, and I'll be taking you through a topic this morning that we call adverse childhood experiences. When we say adverse childhood experiences, these are events, these are issues that happen to us when we're much younger. So today we'll be taking ourselves through the lesson of understanding adverse childhood experiences. The term adverse childhood experiences is an acronym that originated in a groundbreaking study in 1995 by the Center for Disease Control and the Kaiser Permanente Health Care Organization in California. In that study, ACEs referred to three kinds of adversities children faced in their homes, and these range from the physical abuse, emotional abuse, neglect, or what we call household dysfunction. And these vary from one family to the other, and it varies from one child to the other. It's important as students of psychology to learn about adverse childhood experiences because some of the things that we tend to see as disorders or life challenges in adulthood are not issues about adulthood, but issues that happen to a lot of people when they are growing up. ACE are traumatic events that happen between the ages of 1 to 17. In essence, you don't have control over it because a child of 1, a child of 2 cannot really control what happens to them at that age. These negative experiences affect a child's brain and health. And as they grow, the implication becomes more profound. ACE can lead to mental health or chronic health conditions. When you see a lot of people down with chronic health conditions in future, they may be as a result of the adverse childhood experiences they had, or when you see some people down with mental health challenges, it may not be issue at present that is the issue, but it may be factors or other challenges these persons went through when they were much younger that is now responsible for their present state of health. Lifelong treatment and management of ACEs helps a person live a more fulfilling life. If we check ourselves through all the ACEs in the course of my lesson, you will realize that there is no way you will not score at least one or two of these ACEs. But the point this morning is that even if you had such experiences growing up, that does not mean you cannot live a more fulfilling life. Adverse childhood experiences is one of the largest investigation of the impact of childhood abuse and neglect on later life health and well-being. The original ACE study was conducted at the Kaiser Permanente from 1995 to 1997 with 2 waves of data collection. More than 70,000 people received physical exam completed confidential survey regarding their childhood experiences and their current health status and behaviors. So we also can also try in our own way, maybe we carry out a study in this part of the world to be sure of what adverse childhood experience means for some of us. So still moving on to with the explanation. A child brain is like a sponge. That is like a sponge that we use to wash. So they learn from the experiences and absorb knowledge from the world around them. It's not as if we open their brain to put all of this into it. Everything that goes on around them, from the parents' divorce, separation, and what have you, all of them the child brain absorbs it. For example, they learn how to hold a spoon or ride a bicycle. If a negative experience happens, like falling off a bicycle, a child will learn from that experience. They may go slower or even take precautions. Sometimes negative experiences are out of a child's control and they are unable to slow down or protect themselves from mental or physical harm. Let's give an example. The loss of a loved one is beyond what a child can control or what a child can really slow down with. Or let's say sexual abuse. In the case of sexual abuse, it's not the child's fault, and it could go on to affect the mental and the physical health of that child. Also, we have physical abuse. We have some of our parents in this part of the world brag about how they can use cane to reset the child's brain. But all of these are factors, are issues that affect them as they grow older. So all of these that I've mentioned, from loss of loved one, sexual abuse, physical abuse, could be what can be what we all term to be adverse childhood experiences today. The key findings of dozens of studies using the original ACEs data are: one, ACE are quite common, even among a middle-class population. More than two-thirds of the population report experiencing one ACE, and nearly a quarter have experienced 3 or more of the ACEs. Towards the end of the note, we are going to go through the list of the ACEs, and you can now ask yourself, on the scale of 1 to 10, what is my score? If you score 10, that does not mean you can't live a more fulfilling life. At this junction, we all must be sincere and be truthful with ourselves. Another key findings from several of the studies abroad is that there is a powerful, consistent correlation between the number of ACEs experienced and the chances of poor outcomes later in life. If someone experienced 10 ACEs, the person may have poor outcomes later in life. When I say poor outcome, the chances of having poor outcomes may be high, but that does not mean the person must surely end it in a very bad way. Another one is it also increases the risk of having heart diseases, diabetes, obesity, depression, substance abuse, smoking, poor academic achievement, time out of work, and early death. If you look at the list now, if group of studies or findings are pointing out to the fact that when a child goes through too many of these ACEs, they may increase their risk of having heart disease. And you can see several of our parents are down with one form of disease or challenge or the other. Let's say heart disease. It's very common, it's very rampant. It may not even be heart disease directly, but the place of hypertension or high blood pressure. All of these are factors that affect the heart of an individual. So now if you look at our parents, many of them are having some of these challenges. So now if they're having issues like this, that means it may not even be their own lifestyle at this point that is responsible for this challenge. It may also be their own ACEs. That is, there may be a correlation between the ACEs your own parents experienced and the kind of outcome they are now having in their later life. We have diabetes. Diabetes is also common, which has to do with insulin, sugar level. You see that many of our parents are also suffering from diabetes now. That will also be a pointer to the fact that ACEs comes with a lot of health-related outcomes in future. Obesity is another one. Depression is quite common on every street of Lagos and even other states in Nigeria. So when people are depressed as adults, It's not because they choose to be depressed as adults. Some of the issues they are dealing with now may actually be issues that started when they were much younger. So also substance abuse. Some people resorted to substance abuse to deal with their life problems. So when you see them abusing drugs, it's not just about them choosing to abuse drugs now, but it's about the fact that they are using drugs because that was the only option they were left with at that point in their lives. Please just hold on now to check something. Okay, let me continue. Also, let me go back to the previous slide. I'm not done with the explanation there. Okay, so also I mentioned substance abuse. Smoking is another one. Smoking is also common, but it could be a response to some of those challenges we have mentioned earlier. Also, poor academic achievement. A lot of people are going through one form of academic achievement issue or the other, but it may not really be their fault. It may be because of the challenges they've had while growing up. Also, out of work issue or out of school population. A number of adolescents or adults are currently out of school. And when you see them being out of school, for me, it's not really about them. It could be factors beyond them. Also, the last part of it talks about early death. When we say early death, we are talking about some deaths that are not even necessary as a result of one of the listed items here. So, based on the ACE's research, we have 10 conditions or 10 factors to diagnose a child for having, or to diagnose an adult for having adverse childhood experience. The first one is child physical abuse. Many of us actually benefited from that. It's a negative one, but many of our parents here, that is just their way of going about child rearing. We also have child sexual abuse, especially among the female children. This is also something that hardly will you see a girl child that was never abused at some point. It may not just be the serious one, but there will just be one bad brother, one bad uncle doing some bad touches at certain points in one's life. Also, child emotional abuse. This could range from verbal abuse, some parents saying, negative words into the life of the children. All these things are form of emotional abuse. Some, it's emotional neglect. They have dropped them with one uncle or one auntie, or as a result of death of one of the parents, the child is living somewhere. We still have so many younger ones in this part of the world still working as a housemaid, house help, working as sales girls at age where they are supposed to be with their own parents. All those things are forms of emotional neglect. And several young people also, let me not say benefits now, experience that as well. Also, physical neglect. Some were physically neglected during that stage of their life. When a child is physically neglected at that early stage, you see that the implication will be lifelong. Such a child may grow up to be an adult and does not even care about his or her family. Some of us keep complaining about our relationships. When you are dating a man with 8 ACEs or 9 ACEs, what kind of man do you expect the young man to be? And let it be the other way around. If you are a young man, you are very decent with maybe one ACEs or no AC at all, and you are dating a lady with 10 ACEs, and you are complaining like, oh, she doesn't seem to be cooperating, she's so difficult to deal with, it may be beyond her. So sometimes some of these things that we see may actually be beyond the people we are referring to. The sixth one is mentally ill, depressed, and suicidal person in a home. Many of us tend to pretend like we don't have anyone in our family that is mentally ill. Why do I believe that? To a large extent, there is always one person or the other that is mentally ill at a point, but one may not know. One may not be privy to certain information about one's extended family members. I keep saying it, when you visit Yaba Psychiatry, Arrow Psychiatry, all of us tend to do as if we can't, our relatives can't be there. But the people there, they belong to some people, they are members of certain people's families. So for the fact your own family members are not there today, that does not mean your own family members too are not vulnerable to some of these mental illness. Mental illness is just like having malaria that could happen to any one of us, irrespective of our background, of our state of health at this point, or our financial status. Also, being depressed, a lot of families tend to shy away from the fact that they have people that are depressed in their family. But depression is also another one that is real in this part of the world. So if depression is real, I tell you that it could be an AC. Let's say I saw a lady on TikTok some days ago. She was dancing with the dad, and she was trying to say, oh, since the mother passed, the dad has been depressed. And the only way to help the dad was to bring him out of that depression by encouraging him, dancing with him. So that means depression can also happen in anybody's family. Also, suicidal person in a home. We may not directly have someone that has attempted suicide, but this is also a factor that is real. So that means psychotic issue or psychological related issue in the family, by implication, can affect the child. If a dad is mentally ill, it's possible that the child will feel bad. If the father or the mother is depressed, or the sister, it may get to the little ones growing. If someone is saying, I just want to end it all, I want to kill myself, I'm tired of everything. All these issues, they are not small because they have implication on these children. Also, drug addiction and alcoholic family members. It is common that we have people taking alcohol or being addicted to substances. Some of us will still deny it that, not even one person in my family. But the people that are alcoholic, they belong to a family and they belong to certain people. So if you have lived with some of these things, it will affect your ACs as you are growing. Also, witnessing domestic violence against the mother, or let's say against the father now. Several of us also witnessed domestic violence. Violence here does not mean until daddy kills mommy. It may be the verbal one. Chori yayin daru. Hope your mother is not mad. Hope your mother is kinikon. All of this, when a child witnesses it will affect them as they grow older. Also, loss of a parent to death or abandonment by parental divorce. Loss of parents is also very common in this part of the world. If you ask us in this class, we may be 100 in this class, but hardly will I doubt if about 20-30% of us have not been bereaved at one point of the other, maybe as a result of the loss of the dad or that of the mom or another person that is significant to us. Another one is abandonment by divorce. Several young people have been abandoned as a result of divorce because the dad has gone in separate ways with the mom. And all of this, whether we like it or not, they have implication for the child. The next one is the incarceration of any family members for a crime. Many of us, especially in this part of the world, we may say no, none of my family members are in the prison. But in the US, it's a different story. Incarceration is common. And even in Nigeria, it's only that we are not going to admit that we have our big uncles, big aunties in Kirikiri. The people in Kirikiri, they are over 1,000, and they belong to certain family. So that means some families have their relatives in the prison. So let me be sure I'm still with you. Just wave. Okay, thank you, Odunjo Loyede. I just wanted to be sure I'm not here alone and be doing it all by myself. So let's move on to what is traumatic event. Okay, I think I've also omitted a slide. Okay. So how do SE relate to toxic stress? Research has shown that there's a correlation between early adversity and poor outcomes later in life. So toxic stress explains how ACE gets under the skin and trigger biological reaction that leads to those outcomes. There was a time they released a research on cancer, and the research was pointing finger to the fact that a lot of women that are down with cancer are also scoring low on marital satisfaction. In essence, toxic stress can actually get under the skin and do further harm to the body. And that can also be explained further by talking about how excessive activation of our stress response system in a child's brain can as well affect the immunity of the child. When a child is not happy, the environment is toxic, it will affect the immunity of the child. It might affect the metabolic regulatory system and the cardiovascular system of the child. You may be wondering how. Sometimes ordinary, let me even use ordinary heartbreak. Is heartbreak ordinary? Just reply in the chat box. To me, heartbreak is ordinary. Even for ordinary heartbreak, you can have cardiovascular system failure. You can be having struggle in your bowels, like you are struggling to even eat. That is when you will know that some psychological issues can actually get under the skin. It can shut down the body. So sometimes children and adults need to get something to buffer protection for the children so that these experiences will not have a long-lasting impact on the child. So what is a traumatic event? An event or experience that causes long-term, that is chronic stress or extreme stress, that is toxic stress, is what we call traumatic event. And what are the examples of traumatic events? One is to be terrified. So many things can terrify the child. In the chat box, what are the likely things that can terrify a child? Reply in the chat box. Use the chat box now. I'm following it. What are the things that can terrify a child? Shouting. Most of our kids in this part of insects. Yeah, thank you. Scolding. What can also make a child to be helpless? Snake or wild animal, the dark. Yeah. What are the things that can make a child to be helpless? What are the things? Strangers. Yes, a child can feel flogging unnecessarily. Yeah, some of us benefited from that so well. So a child can feel helpless when the parents ojuju kalaba. When the parents passes, a child can feel helpless. Shadows can make a child feel helpless. Crowd. I'm talking about even things that can really cause traumatic events. You remember what happened with Oriyomi Hamzat last year during a program in Ibadan where a lot of kids were stampeded. That's another thing that could make a child to be helpless. Also at risk of danger or in danger when a child is being dropped with a neighbor and the child is experiencing one form of danger or the other and the person doesn't care. Another one is being physically hurt. Yes, being alone, war and displacement. Thank you. I think we are going through it together. So traumatic events that a child is going through at this point may have long-lasting implication for the child. Let's also look at those children in this IDP camp, internally displaced people's camp. Find those children today, they are in the camp, we think they are fine, but they are likely going to be vulnerable to some of these things because of the kind of traumatic events they have experienced or witnessed in this short period they have lived. The implication may not be seen at this stage as they are growing at this stage of their lives, but as they are growing older, some of these things are likely going to be seen and become more notable or more profound in their lives. So, what is trauma? And how does it connect to ACEs and toxic stress? While trauma has many definitions, typically in psychology, it refers to an experience of serious adversity or terror, or the emotional or psychological response to the experience. Trauma-informed care or services are characterized by understanding that problematic behavior may need to be treated as a result of the ACEs or other traumatic experiences someone has had, as opposed to addressing them as simply willful or punishable action. So trauma, toxic stress, and ACEs, there is a thin line between these three. The lines are so thin that when there is toxic stress, the person might score high on ACE. And when there is traumatic event, the chances of the person scoring high on ACE is also high. What are the types of traumatic events? You can see some that I've listed there. Natural disaster is one. Domestic violence is another one. Shootings that we see on the street of US. We now have shootings in Nigeria now, so it's not about US alone. Also, we have bullying. Bullying can be traumatic. You have seen several students that have died as a result of being bullied. So bullying, apart from the fact that it can end someone's life, it can also leave a permanent scar in the person's life. It can be traumatic when you have a senior, you have a parent, you have a stepdad that bullies you. Also, a car accident can be traumatic. If a child of age 10, age 12 experiences a car accident, the trauma, the child may have to live with the trauma for a very long time. Also, sexual abuse is another one. When we say sexual abuse here, we are talking about all forms of abuses, especially from the opposite sex to a minor. So now when we talk about sexual abuse, it's traumatic when an adult or someone is trying to force him or herself to have carnal knowledge of you. Another one is living in an area undergoing war. You can see Ukraine, you can see our up north in Nigeria, and few other places. Living in those areas, it's something that can be traumatic for the younger people living in those zones. Okay, so other forms of traumatic thing, witnessing serious injuries or death of another person. It is not very ideal for a younger person to witness serious injuries or death of another person. If a child witnesses a serious injury, the trauma may be lifelong for them. If someone like us now, this our age, if we see someone in a pool of blood, God forbid, the trauma is going to do for us will be definitely lower with what is going to do for a little child. For a little child, seeing that the sight of that blood alone may cause the child not to sleep for a very long time. So it is important that we ensure that these children are, I think I've omitted a slide. That's the next one. So it is important that we don't allow children to experience things like that. Also, loss of family members or parental divorce and separation. We have seen so many divorce going on social media, and the children will grow up to see some of those things. We could remember that of this woman that sings, or Sinachi or whatever, that is children had to give account of how their dad used to beat their mom. So all of this could be very traumatic for a child that is growing. So in essence, there are only some example of these are only some of the examples of traumatic events, but there are a quite number that we did not add to this note. So a traumatic event may occur once. It could happen several times during one's childhood. Not every child will react the same way. For example, if two children both experience the same traumatic events, one child may develop a long-term stress while the other one may have a short-term reaction to it. But in essence, traumatic experiences affect children and it affects them the more when they grow. How common are ACEs? Adverse childhood experiences are quite common. A study of adults in the United States reported that 60 to 80% experience at least one type of ACEs. Of this same test group, 1 in 6 said they experienced at least 4 of the ACEs. So in essence, adverse childhood experience is quite common. So who is at risk of having adverse childhood experience? Who do you think is more at risk of having adverse childhood experience? Any child under the age of 18 can have adverse childhood experiences, and ACEs are more common among girls or children assigned female at birth. A girl child, mostly girls are more exposed, are more vulnerable to ACE than boys, especially sexual abuse. Also, racial or ethnic group classified as minority. Let's say you are in a home, you are just maybe the only girl among 7 boys. The chances of experiencing higher ACE may be high because they might classify you as minority. Let's say you are in a class of psychology and you have a kind of challenge or disability that is profound. That will make you to be in a minority group and tend to be at the receiving end of some of these ACEs. Another one is children who experience socioeconomic challenges. When there is poverty, chances of experiencing ACEs, especially in higher number, increases. But when you have not been opportune to, when you live in wealthy homes, some of these issues in under ACE may not really come to you. Also, children of parents or caregivers who experience stress. If your parents are going through stress, the chances of raising a child with higher ACE score will also be high. And why? The parents are going through maybe financial stress, they are not happy, they just return from work full of anger, full of pains, and any little thing, they hit you. You see how they transfer some of these aggressive things to you. So for that, you know that it's not really about you and them. but it's about what they are going on, what is going on with them. Children who have family members or friends diagnosed with substance use or mental health condition. When there is a mental health condition pattern in a family, the children in those homes will be more vulnerable to it. Also, substance abuse use. When there is a substance use pattern in a family, it is possible that the children in that home too, they are also predisposed to it. So what are the signs of an adverse childhood experience? After an adverse childhood experience, a child may show signs of trauma that include fear of other people, difficulty sleeping or frequent nightmares, bedwetting or frequent urination, changes to their mood, difficulty showing affection towards friends or family, especially in dating, in romantic relationship. They find it difficult to show the right affection because of their previous trauma. Also, avoiding situations or events that relate to a traumatic experience. Let's say maybe the person growing up had an accident as a child. So now, as an adult, whenever you say, "Oh, let's go to Benin for a party," the person will say no because of the previous challenges they've had. Also, difficulty learning in school. When you see some people not learning in school, you are just looking at the surface of the issue, but it may actually be beyond the surface. There may be other ACEs that is making the person susceptible to learning difficulty in school. Does an adverse childhood experiences impact adults? The question is not complete, but I think it's complete here. Okay. Okay. Does an adverse childhood experiences can actually impact adults after this traumatic event has happened over the years? It can impact your health. It can impact the quality of life and access to opportunities like your career and education. Yeah, apologies for that interruption. So AC can actually affect an adult. And how will it affect an adult? It can cause anxiety and depression. It can leave the person with PTSD. The adults can be living with a kind of insomnia or different forms of phobias. It can affect mood of the person, causing mood disorders. It can be a factor for substance use disorder or eating disorders. So when you see some of these disorders in an adult, they may not be issues that the person just started now, but issues that has to do with how they have lived over time. So ACE can also lead to chronic conditions like cancer and heart disease. This happens because stress takes a toll on your body. It can affect the way your cells divide and replicate and can lead to cancer. In addition, it can affect the way your heart functions by increasing your blood pressure. I think I've mentioned this earlier. So it's important that whatever we take in today can affect the cell divisions in our body. So for cancer, what is cancer? Cancer has to do with the division of the cell. So when the cell, especially the the bad ones, I'm looking for the right name to use. When the ones that malignant, the malignant and the non-malignant cells, they are not supposed to, some are not supposed to multiply or divide themselves so fast. But in a situation whereby there is ACE, the chances of those things multiply fast will be very high. Also, ACE can decrease a person's overall life expectancy by nearly 20 years compared to people who doesn't have any ACEs. What are the behavioral changes that ACE can cause in an adult? Research suggests that adults who had ACEs may be more likely to participate in high-risking behaviors, like using tobacco products, misusing prescription medications, experimenting with drugs or highly addictive substances, participating in high-risk sexual behaviors, attempting suicide or self-harm. You can see that ACE can really affect an adult. What does an ACE does to your body? ACE can actually cause extreme stress to a child's body. When you are stressed, your body releases hormones like cortisol and adrenaline to help you adapt to the situation. And this is called the fight or flight response in psychology. The release of these hormones causes an increase in your heart rate, changes to your breathing, changes to your vision, and more. This response is usually temporary. But in a situation whereby you are now being exposed to ACE regularly, that means some of these factors may now be lifelong, especially the changes in heart rate. All of us do experience that. But it should be one-off thing or once in a while. But whenever they want to flog you, you know the way your heart will pump. And if that is how they flog you every day, that may actually affect your breathing. And that breathing on the long run may have other implications as the person grows older. How do adverse childhood experiences affect development? ACE can impact how a person develops. Children are born to learn from the environment around them. This desire helps them become independent and reach childhood milestones set for their age. All of their childhood experiences, both positive and negative, influence how a child grows and develops. A child's brain is very sensitive. Its development is similar to growing a seed. The seed looks for certain things in its environment to help it grow, like sunlight, water, and soil. When a seed has its basic need met, it turns into a flower. If there is not enough sunlight and your seed doesn't get the necessary nutrition it needs to grow, that means the support from the flowers around it will affect it. ACE are often out of a child's control because they are negative experiences and they may thereby cloud their brain. A child who has ACEs may need support throughout their life from healthcare provider, friends, family, and their community to help them bosom. So what are the causes of ACEs? I think you have mentioned some: violence, abuse, physical, emotional, or sexual, neglect, loss of a family or friend, missing parental figures, or divorce. So many of our Gen Z sisters now that are bragging about being the only child for the parent. It's not about you alone now. We are bringing a child to the world, and you must ensure that the child grows without ACEs. There are also social determinants of health, which are factors within your environment and can influence you. And some of these can determine some of these determinants can hurt a child's life and cause an adverse childhood experience. Example is a disrupted living situation when there is no permanent family house, the child is being moved from one location to the other, lack of access to health care, financial challenges, being unhoused or moving frequently from one house to the other, and discrimination. So let me be sure we're still together. Just okay. So basically, are you following me or I'm just talking to myself? Just chat. I want chat. I don't want you to talk verbally. Chat, don't unmute yourself. Are you following me? Okay. Okay, yes. Thank you, Kadiri. Yes. So, oh, thank you, Hepo. Yeah, Akiniyi. I appreciate. So, how are adverse childhood experiences treated? I think, yeah, Olulode Samuel. So, how are childhood adverse experiences being treated? The joyful thing here is that, in as much as we talk about adverse childhood experiences, there is always a treatment. Please mute yourself, that person talking, please. If I mute you, that means I'm removing you from my class for disturbing me. So there are ways to assist a child going through, an adult going through adverse childhood experience. The first one is regularly seeing a mental health therapist for psychotherapy, or what we also call talk therapy. Managing or treating any underlying health condition, often with medications. Medical treatment for adverse childhood experiences vary based on the cause. Long-term chronic medical conditions like heart disease and mental health conditions like anxiety and depression will need lifelong treatment and management. So we shouldn't allow it get to this level. As a professional, you can help in your community by enrolling the child in supportive education programs in schools, joining a support group for grief, substance use, or any other related ones, encouraging the family to receive crisis intervention services to support your medical, legal, and housing needs, participating in mentorship programs where children can learn from one another in the community, joining sports teams or club to help the child make new friends, build confidence, and learn new skills. At home, you can also try to prevent ACE by using kind language to speak to your children, using a non-violent approach to discipline your child, teaching your child how to handle conflict safely without necessarily revenging or abusing or bullying the other person. Being a role model and setting a positive example for your child to aspire to be. For the fact you have scored 7/10 on AC, that does not mean the child you are going to raise must have the same number. It should just get better with the child. You can reduce your risk of exposing your child to trauma by one, providing a nurturing and safe environment for the child, creating a bond or building a relationship with the child, making sure your child's physical and emotional needs are met, getting the care and support you need as a caregiver. This risk prevention method can be difficult to achieve on your own, so you may need support from your friends, family, and community to help build a safe environment. So it's okay to ask for help when you really need it. You can also help reduce ACEs by preventing household adversities, by also taking this message outside the classroom so that we can have a better society, supporting parents and families going through difficult period, not necessarily in terms of finance, but by saying kind words and using some other words that can reinforce their hope or build their hope. Building resilience in children and wider communities. Like maybe a child's parents just pass and the child is like trying to give up. You should be able to come in and let the child know that, oh, we have people that have even made it in this world without a dad and a mom. Since it has happened, encouraging wider awareness and understanding about ACEs and their impact on health and behavior. Using encounters with adults in such services as homelessness service, addiction, prison, and maternity services to also consider the impact on their children and future. So when to call the doctor? Where should I go if I need help with ACE? If adverse childhood experience is affecting you or your child's ability to grow and thrive, visit a healthcare provider. They may give you resources to meet with your mental health professional, if it is a medical specialist that you need to assess the other underlying health conditions. If it is law enforcement agency that you need, if you're in danger, let's say in rape case or in even neglect, you could report to the law enforcement that you have a dad. He has not been home for months. It's been you all alone. Then we also have support groups. For my concluding remarks, our relationship and experiences, even those in our childhood, can really affect our health and well-being. So difficult childhood experiences are very common. Please tell us whether you have had any of these experiences listed below or below, as they may be affecting your mental health or may affect your health in the future. This information will help you and your provider better understand how to work together to support yourself. I still have one more slide to share with you. Just hold on for now.